Hello everyone. Today our topic is Parkinsonism. Now we are quite familiar with this disease, that is Parkinsonism, and it's not that it is very rare. Okay, it is found in many people, and that actually happens with age. Means this is a type of age related disorder. This is, of course, we all know this is related to some sort of neuronal disturbances. That is, there is some problems with the nervous system. Now, what is this? Here we can see that in Parkinsonism, two main things are there. One is hypokinesis and one is hyperkinesis. That means your body will have some sort of neuronal problems for which there can be restriction of movements, or there can be hyper mobility of the joints, and there can be excessive movement, there can be convulsions and all. So this happened, means there are several reasons for Parkinsonism. One of the main reason that we see is due to the defect with the dopamine receptors. Okay, the dopamine receptors which are present basically in the neostratum. Now what is this neostratum and all, I will discuss slowly. So when there is problem with the dopamine receptors in the neostratum, at that point of time the conduction is not possible, because we know that dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter present, and whenever there is some problem with the receptors, then automatically dopamine will not be sensed, and for that reason the other coordinating functions, motor movements, they will be hampered. Okay, so for understanding this, we have to understand that there are two terms. One is the substantia nigra and one is the subthalamic nuclei. Now this entire thing, substantia nigra and subthalamic nuclei, these are related with Parkinsonism. And Parkinsonism, as we can understand by the name, that this was named after James Parkinson, who discovered this disease due to some sort of palsy. Okay, whenever there is a palsy, muscular problem, or hypermobility of the joints, or hypomobility, which is either restricting or incrementing the movement of the joints, that's what we call it as your Parkinsonism. Okay. Now see, talking about the substantia nigra, for that we have to understand how is it related to the midbrain, and also we have to understand the something that is called as your neostratum. Now what is this neostratum? For that we have to understand some basic concept of basal ganglia. Now let's first start with the basal ganglia. Now what is this basal ganglia? This is present, of course you can understand ganglia. What is a ganglion? Ganglion is a collection of cell body outside the central nervous system. But there is an exception, that we use the word ganglia because that's a collection of cell body, but that is present inside the central nervous system. Because basically we use the word nucleus or nuclei to define the presence of cyton or cell body of neuron inside the central nervous system. The exception here is the basal ganglia. Now what is this basal ganglia? Basal ganglia is nothing but this is scattering of grey matter. We all know the cortex, cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex, inside it we can see that the external surface, means if I am talking about the sectioning of the cerebral cortex, then outside we will find the grey matter, that is collection of the cell bodies, and inside we will find the white matter, which is the collection of the axon, and this axon is basically myelinated, which is giving that whitish appearance. Okay, now what is this basal ganglia? Basal ganglia is same, that it is talking about ganglia, that means it has something associated with cell body. If there is white matter present inside the cerebral cortex, then there is scattered grey matter. This scattered grey matter present inside the white matter, that is basically called as basal ganglia. And inside it we will find that the layers are arranged, that white matter, grey matter, like this the layers are arranged. Okay. So, and this basal ganglia is mainly associated, we say that it is the voluntary motor functioning, it's associated with that function. Okay, motor movements and motor functioning. But many other functions of basal ganglia, they are still not known. They are under the process of discovery. Now here we can see a section. That sectioning we can understand that this is the medial aspect and that is the lateral aspect. Okay, in the medial aspect we can see that we have something that is called as the lentiform nucleus. Whenever the word nucleus is coming, you understand that that is association of grey matter. So lentiform nucleus, that is further subdivided into two parts. One outer side that is facing towards the lateral side, because you can understand if it is a horizontal sectioning, sometimes like see here for the midbrain we have taken the transverse section, okay, transverse sectioning of the midbrain. Here I am not discussing about the sectioning, just understand that on the extreme lateral side you will find the lateral sulcus that is present, okay. Lateral sulcus is mainly, you know, if this is the frontal lobe associated with the parietal lobe, and then on the sidewards, on the lateral facing side, we will find the temporal lobe, and that temporal lobe is divided from the main cerebral cortex, okay, by this lateral sulcus. And we have seen the development also. Here you can see that this lentiform nucleus is divided by the white fibers, and that is forming an inner putamen and outer globus pallidus layer. Other than that, there is something called as the internal capsule. Now what is this internal capsule? Internal capsule is nothing but white matter, okay. White fibers are there. These are the projection fibers. Now there are three types of fibers mainly: commissural fibers, we have the projection fibers, and the association fibers. So these projection fibers are forming the pyramidal tract or the corticospinal tract, okay, means they are coming from the cortex region to the spinal region. These fibers are actually carrying sensation from the cortex region to the spinal region, and they are passing a certain portion, okay, they are passing a certain portion of the medulla, and in the medullary region you will find that in the anterior side, that is the ventromedian fissure, just lateral to that we will find two projected surfaces. They are called as the pyramids. Why are they called as the pyramids? Because of the presence of this pyramidal tract fibers or the corticospinal tract or the projection fibers present. So that forms the internal capsule. I am not going into any detail, I am giving the gross idea of what is called as the basal ganglia. So here on the lateral aspect we see the lentiform nucleus, on the medial aspect we find the caudate nucleus, that is also association of grey matter, and in the posterior median aspect we find the thalamus, okay. Then we have something after just crossing the lentiform nucleus, we have the external capsule which is white matter, okay, and then we have something that is called as the claustrum. This claustrum is also a part of the basal ganglia, that is again grey matter. Then after that we have the extreme capsule, which extreme capsule surrounding it. Then we have the insular cortex, and after that we have the lateral sulcus present. As we all know that the brain has sulcus and gyrus present, many sulci and gyri present. So we will not go into that detail. So that is overall a view, schematic diagram, lateral to medial. We are saying these layers are important, and here we see that certain fibers are there which are connecting. These are nothing but grey matter fibers, okay, that is these are grey matter which are connecting the lentiform nucleus's inside part, that is the putamen, with the head of the caudate nucleus. The caudate nucleus has certain parts, I am not going to those details. It is mainly connecting the head of the caudate nucleus with the putamen, inner layer of the lentiform nucleus, that is the putamen. So these fibers are associated and these are crossing the internal capsule, okay. So these actually, this is known as the corpus stratum. Corpus means related to the body, and stratum means here they appear as some sort of lining or layer, okay, strata. So that we can understand this forms some sort of layer, and some fibers are seen moving from this direction to that direction. So that was about related with something called as the corpus stratum, and what we say is the neostratum. This neostratum is basically the putamen plus caudate nucleus only. So that we have understood, which has this dopamine receptors present. After that something, let's discuss substantia nigra. What is the substantia nigra? Here we can see the sectioning of the midbrain, transverse sectioning of the midbrain. We can understand that if the section is like this, then something we have in the center, that is the grey matter in this case over here, and we have the aqueduct of Sylvius present, which connects the third ventricle and the fourth ventricle. Now on these sides we can see that there are presence of the trigeminal lemniscus, okay. Then we have the crus cerebri. This crus cerebri, these structures are the crus cerebri. Crus means legs. Okay. And we have there the interpeduncular fossa, which lodges the pituitary as well as the mammillary bodies. So some sort of fibers we see, motor fibers, which have basically multipolar neurons present in this case, and certain inclusion granules which secrete melanin. And these fibers which are present, these are called the substantia nigra. These have a motor nucleus present. So this division of the midbrain, tectum, tegmentum and the crus cerebri. These are the three parts, and here we see also the decussation of fibers are taking place. I'm not going to details of what this midbrain is and what is the basal ganglia. I'm just giving an overall view that what you understand by neostriatum and what is the substantia nigra. Further, now we are coming on to the internal circuit. Here we can see that the cerebral cortex is there, neostriatum is there, thalamus is there, pallidum, subthalamus. Okay, then substantia nigra. So we are concerned mainly with this neostriatum substantia nigra circuit. Here we see neostriatum produces gamma aminobutyric acid, which is coming to the substantia nigra, and here it has this receptors of GABA which are acting. And substantia nigra, this is releasing dopamine. Okay, dopamine is produced over here, and via this nigrostriatal fibers they are going to the neostriatum. The dopamine is reaching the neostriatum, there that is released. Basically dopa is converted to dopamine, and here the receptors are there, dopaminergic receptors. Okay, so that is the internal circuit. So GABA and dopamine, they have opposite effects in this case. That means if one will give the positive cycle, another will give the negative cycle. Okay, so that is the internal circuit. Here we are concerned. Now coming on to the synthesis of dopamine. So dopamine is produced from phenylalanine, which is a type of essential amino acid. That means essential means we have to consume it from outside. We have to take supplement that is from outside where source we are taking. Then phenylalanine is converted into tyrosine, which is a non-essential amino acid, under influence of reductase enzyme. That is called as DHBP reductase, dihydrobiopterin reductase enzyme is there, and here you can see oxygenation reaction. Oxygen is used in this reaction and water is liberated. Copper, ions, vitamin C, these are acting as the factors, other factors. From tyrosine, dopa is formed. What is dopa? Dopa is dihydrophenylalanine. Okay, dopa is produced by hydroxylation. Hydroxylase enzyme is used. Tyrosine is hydroxylated to dopa. That is dihydrophenylalanine. Then under influence of dopa decarboxylase enzyme, this is forming dopa to dopamine. Okay, amine group is added in this case, dopa to dopamine, phenylalanine. Actually, the structure, if you see the amino acid structure from there, it would be more clear that how dopamine is coming into existence. So here carbon dioxide is released in this case, and we are seeing the structure of dopamine. Now dopamine under influence of monoamine oxidase enzyme, it can further get converted into norepinephrine, and norepinephrine can get converted into epinephrine. So there is the methyl transferase enzyme that is called as phenylethanonamine and methyl transferase. So this can convert. So I am not going to do extra details of how it's forming the every step of biochemistry. Here I am giving an overall idea, because for understanding the treatment of Parkinsonism, we need certain sorts of drugs which will act over here, and for that we have to understand the pathway. Okay. Now what actually happens is that whenever there is some defect, neuronal defect, so for that reason what will happen, dopamine, if it is secreted in less amount, then automatically the receptors will not get dopamine which are present. Basically the receptors of the neostriatum, they will actually not get the influence of dopamine. So automatically what will happen, hypersensitivity of receptors will happen in the postsynaptic neurons of the neostriatum. Okay, and that will be a problematic situation slowly, and this dopamine levels, or might be that dopamine is not produced also, one can be this, or might be that the receptors are damaged, dopamine receptors are damaged, so that can also be a problematic state for this Parkinson's disease. Now talking about a few signs and symptoms, what we get to see. Tremor will happen, and these tremors are basically aggravated during rest condition or sleep. Suppose a person is resting or sleeping, so suddenly there will be tremor in the hand, jerking of the hand. Okay, so that will happen in this case. then rigidity will happen. So muscles will become quite stiff, they will become rigid due to the injury to the upper motor neurons. Now what is this upper motor neurons? I am not going into details, okay, but here if you can see that the rigidity, if this tremor is absent, then we get to see the plastic rigidity, okay, and if this tremor is present, then we get to see the jerks which are happening in this case, that is the cogwheel's rigidity. Okay, two types of rigidity, one is plastic rigidity and one is cogswell rigidity. And then we also see bradykinesis. Brady means less, kinesis means movement. As I have already told you, Parkinsonism includes both hypokinetic as well as hyperkinetic motor effect. So here we can, bradykinesis means this will of course lead to the low movement or less movements of the joints. Okay, bradykinesis. And there will be postural deformities. There can be a stoop. There can be might be that the limbs remain flexed or extended, they can't be flexed. So there will be several problems associated with the joints. As I have told you, there could be hyperextensibility of the joints as well as hypoextensibility of the joints. So these are the certain signs and symptoms that we will see. Now next we will discuss about the types as well as the treatment of Parkinsonism, what we can do actually to treat this. Thank you.